Why I think 60 FPS is holding back this generation of consoles. From generation to generation, we always see a huge jump on visuals on video games. But for the PS5 and Xbox Series generation, we don't see a lot of games that really felt like a next generation game. And sometimes felt like we are still living in the last generation because of how similar the visuals were to the PS4 Xbox One era. Even some PS4 games, I argue, look better than some of the PS5 games. But why is this the case? First, we need to take a look at the bump on visuals from generation to generation. We'll start from the PS1 to the PS2 generation. The bump on visuals from the PS1 to the PS2 is very noticeable and felt like you're stepping into the next generation of consoles. Games on PS2 look stunning at the time. No more of those blocky characters like the infamous Final Fantasy VII models. Games on PS2 can finally be run mostly at 3D, whereas PS1 games needed to rely on 2D assets or 2D backgrounds most of the time. But from the very start, games already pushing the system with the likes of GTA 3. Then came games like Resident Evil 4, Bully, GTA San Andreas, Metal Gear Solid 3, Black, and etc. And all of these games have one thing in common. They all running at 30 FPS. Sure, there are games that runs at 60 FPS like Metal Gear Solid 2, but developers always wants to push what's possible on the system in this generation. There's a balance between 60 and 30 FPS games released for the console. From the PS2 to the PS3 generation, the jump on visuals were even greater. Games are more cinematic than ever, textures look more detailed, and character models look more believable. And in this generation, developers were really pushing the system from the very start, with games like Killzone 2, Batman Arkham Asylum, Uncharted, GTA 4, Gears of War, Metal Gear Solid 4, and etc. And at the end of its life cycle, the visuals were even better as developers became more familiar with the console. Games like GTA 5, The Last of Us, Resistance 3, Uncharted 3, and etc. The visuals were so good at the time that some of them could even rival some of the early titles for the PS4 in terms of visuals. And all of this is possible because of developers targeting 30 FPS instead of 60 FPS. From the PS3 to the PS4, the same thing happened. Games on PS4 were almost reaching photorealism even in its first couple of years of the generation, with the likes of Killzone Shadowfall, Infamous Second Son, Drive Club, Batman Arkham Knight, and etc. Later came games like Uncharted 4, God of War, Ghost of Tsushima, Red Dead Redemption 2, The Last of Us Part 2, and etc. Where those games' visuals look so good even till this day on the PS5 Xbox Series era. And the fact that all of those games running at 30 FPS just tells how much PS4 being pushed to its full potential. And now in the PS5's Xbox Series generation, the bump on visuals from the last generation felt nothing very significant. At its first few years, we got games like Horizon Forbidden West and God of War Ragnarok, which is a cross-gen title, meaning it also released for the PS4. Both game looks amazing on PS5, but also looked amazing on PS4, with little to no difference, especially God of War Ragnarok. But eventually, we got the PS5 only games like Spider-Man 2, Returnal, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, and etc. Those games look great, but at the same time, it looks too similar to the PS4 games. I'm not saying that it's the same quality, but it's not too far off from the visuals we see on the PS4 generation. You hardly felt that next generation magic you feel when you play Uncharted 4 on the PS4 or Killzone 2 on the PS3. So far, there's only been 3 games that have that feeling in my opinion, and that is Death Stranding 2, Alan Wake 2, and Ghost of Yotei, where the visuals look like a true next-gen experience. And my reasons for that problem is the demand for 60 FPS in this current generation is even bigger than ever. Now, all games is required to have a performance mode targeting 60 FPS, and because of that, developers don't have the freedom to push the consoles to its limits like we see on the PS4 generation. I know that Death Stranding 2, Alan Wake 2, and Ghost of Yotei is also running at 60 FPS, but in the span of 5 years, we only get 3 next-gen experience. And 3 of those games can look even better if the developers don't need to focus on making the game hit 60 FPS. The only developers that will push the system and ditch the 60 FPS target so far is Rockstar, with their upcoming GTA 6. Fans are more forgiving towards Rockstar with the 60 FPS demand, because we've been waiting the next GTA since 2013. As for the other games, 60 FPS is still a requirement for this generation. If developers given the freedom to push the system, maybe we would see more games implementing ray tracing more effectively. I'm not saying that I don't like games to be running at 60 FPS on consoles. I'm just saying there should be a balance of 60 and 30 FPS games. Because now, the 30 FPS quality mode is only limited to improving resolutions to 4K and sometimes some minor ray tracing features. Where in hindsight, they could push the game to have a bigger scale and use ray tracing more effectively. Because of the 60 FPS demand, the introduction of the PS5 Pro is a little too fast, and we already started hearing rumors about the PS6, which is very early in this generation, with only a few games that truly define this generation in my opinion. And that's why I think 60 FPS is holding back this generation of consoles.